Hello everybody and welcome to Amphlett Reviews, back with a Hong Kong content review. As mentioned in my video prior to this, with the kind of the broken house situation, my kind of selection of films to watch are kind of limited now, so I'm relying purely on digital downloads, renting, things like that on DVDs that I can access with a laptop. So there will be some random series of movies and reviews coming out on the channel, ones that I want to talk about and discuss for you guys and kind of get your thoughts and opinions alongside. And today we'll be continuing on with the Ringo Lam movies, two movies that I've yet to see that I have seen now. I've had a bit of an interesting kind of renaissance with this director back and forth since when I first began doing Hong Kong reviews on the channel, with the re-releases, and over the past year or so, I would say, I think he's a absolutely fantastic director, but has such a really strange kind of filmography and kind of quality level on his films. Once he commits to an idea, I think he's just pure fucking gold. But when he's kind of compromising, or when he's doing these weird mashup movies of, like, you know, romantic comedies with dark thrillers and, you know, kind of questionable kind of choices, and sometimes maybe the script's not particularly that good, sometimes maybe the action's not that great. I've had a really weird mix of quality with this director in his films, and I've been completely honest on the channel about this. So if you're curious about any of my previous reviews and films that I have checked out, there will be some links in the description below for the ones that I have reviewed, and it's only fair to continue on and talk about some more Ringo Lam movies. You know, obviously the last ones I did was the glorious Full Contact and Full Alert, the best of Ringo Lam, which I think is Burning Paradise. For me, is my personal favourite of his kind of filmography at the moment. So let's start with Undeclared War.
What's wrong with you? I'm afraid of heights, all right?
Undeclared War was released in 1990, directed by Ringo Lam, of course, and this is a very different film than a traditional Hong Kong movie. This was very much like more of an international movie. This is mainly set, I believe, in America. Pretty decent, recognizable cast of actors that you're going to recognize from various different projects and different films. And, you know, Vincent Wells is infamous for the Commando, the bad guy, which looks like, you know, Freddie Mercury, who's got a hard-on for Matrix, Arnold Schwarzenegger, which is hilarious. And he's definitely hammered up in this film as well, for sure. Peter Lopez, which is the kind of cop, CIA cop. You have Rosamund Kwan, the film. You can definitely tell Ringo Lam's trying to go for more of a French Connection kind of, you know, feel and vibes for the film. He wants to be more of a boots on the ground. He wants to film on location, which is definitely a big positive, and I can see what he's trying to do, especially its editing and its kind of choices with its kind of framing is very cold. It's very kind of, you know, still. I can tell what he's trying to go for. He's trying to appeal for more of the international Western crowd more than the Hong Kong crowd, because it's filmed very untraditionally, like a Hong Kong movie, and I think that's definitely a disadvantage to the film. I can see what he's trying to go for. I can see what he's trying to do in terms of the efforts, but the dialogue delivery, the physical acting, the way these characters are expressing themselves in the film, it's just not engaging. It feels very awkward. And as mentioned, you know, clearly the Hong Kong actors are trying their best. When they're speaking in their natural dialect, it comes across perfectly fine. Like, you know, Dan Lee's a pretty decent actor. You know, I've seen him in a few various kind of roles, and Rosamund Kwan is usually stand out in most Hong Kong films. But, you know, when they speak English, you know, bouncing off other B-movie actors which aren't delivering the lines anyway, and they speak natural English, it just comes across just really still, really awkward. The lines aren't badass, aren't cool, they're just kind of thing. It's just going from something like French Connection to like a traditional buddy cop B movie. You know, you've got to have a bit of skill for that, and you definitely can do that type of stuff. You know, we have seen it within previous movies of Ringo Lam, but this one doesn't quite work. I think the really, really good example of something like this is the ultimate one being Rush Hour, of course. You know, the phenomenal and my personal favourite Drive, Mark Dacascos. It's definitely going for a bigger kind of scope this time around. I think the budget's quite impressive, and they're definitely filming on location. There's definitely some amazing kind of, you know, action set pieces and stunt work that's happening in the film when they do kind of blow a lot of them budget on some of the big set pieces. I'm mainly talking about the style of the film with the helicopter sequence and the church. That was a really kind of impressive introduction to the actual film. And this film essentially is a typical kind of, you know, weird buddy cop but not buddy cop B movie that's trying to be like an espionage thriller at the same time. It's kind of weird tone wise. It's kind of like a bit confusing what it was trying to go for, but it definitely wants to be this kind of bigger kind of international terrorist at arms, time. But it's definitely going to these locations with these churches, and it's having helicopters in the sky. It's having actual like permission to film on these locations, which is fantastic to see. I would take this any day of the week over a green screen or kind of a weird dodgy effect. And having fight sequences as well and action set moments actually in public, in open, with extras, potentially, closing off streets, is always really positive for me, and I really do appreciate that. It's almost trying to pitch you as an actual poster in the trailer as a buddy cop, the two reluctant people teaming up against each other, their partners being killed, and they have to kind of work together, but they don't really for most of the film until the last third act. They're very separate for most of it, and I don't know if that's a translation thing, because Danny Lee, I don't know if it's his first kind of American film, kind of all filmed in America where he's speaking English. I don't know if English is something that he's done often in this, but again, it's that delivery, there's something missing. I would rather him actually speak, his natural dialect, and maybe kind of the partner could have, could speak it as well. But they do sort of allude to that towards the end, which is a bit strange as well. I think some of that dialogue, some of that delivery, it just doesn't come across quite right. And by the end of the film, it kind of fizzles out a little bit. He tries to up the stakes with, Rosamund Kwan, which is the kind of reporter, the media, which is going to, basically kind of spread the message, forcibly by kind of, the terrorist organization. And, Rosamund Kwan, big fan of Rosamund Kwan. She's great in a lot of Hong Kong movies, but in this one, I thought she was a bit lacking again. Maybe it's the translation thing, maybe it's just not enough for her character to really do. Overall, Undeclared War for me is a misfire. I think it tries to be bigger than the film actually is. I do give a lot of credit to Ringo Lam for trying a bigger international film, trying to kind of imitate more of a Western kind of approach, and this is definitely something he would use and kind of take upon within these Van Damme movies later on, with Maximum Risk and Replicant and some of his other films he has done later on with the Van Damme within a lot of American-based movies. So this is definitely his introduction into that type of stuff, and while I do appreciate the effort and him working with a more big international cast, trying to go for a bigger scope film, it's just kind of a misfire film. Touch and Go was released in 1991, 1 year after Undeclared War, going back to more of a traditional, typical kind of 90s kind of disposable kind of film. You have Sammo Hung here, which is, I think, a pretty decent character. He's very charismatic. I don't know if it's the character necessarily, or it's just the Sammo Hung just being great as he always is. I've said multiple times, where regardless what Sammo Hung usually does, whether he's directing, whether he's involved in a film, he's usually pretty fun. He's usually pretty much a good standout. Even with the recent kind of Twilight of the Warriors, he's great in that, and he's in his late 80s, so he's getting on a bit quiet in that. And this one, he's still delivering a very charismatic, very fun, likable character playing Fat Goose, which the story's funny that he's just, he's always playing the stereotype, the fatty or Fat Goose or something along those lines, where he's taking the piss out of his way, but yet he can still throw down, he can still kick some serious ass and deliver that kind of, epic, badassery that you always like to see from Sammo Hung. And his character in this one is just fine. He's playing a chef. You wouldn't know it because he doesn't cook anything apart from the end of the film, I believe. And he's basically a witness to a murder that happened. You've got a cop who's basically trying to expose this kind of human trafficking kind of ring, very big, and basically someone big basically was seen and taken photos of, and that partner gets killed, and you've got the partner of that person basically trying to track down Sammo Hung, Fat Goose, which is the witness of this, and they sort of have a reluctant kind of team up, but not really, similar to Undeclared War, where they doesn't really commit to it in towards the late middle part of the film, where they have to kind of force to come together down to kind of escalation. You've got a little too many characters kind of thrown into it. You've got the initial main two, which is the thriller, darker kind of thriller aspect, which at the start I thought was actually pretty good. I'm liking this kind of tone, the look of the film. It's kind of got that kind of, Ringo Lam kind of, edge, which I like to see. Something like Full Alert fully commits to, and some of his other films, like, the city on fire and sort of school on fire, things like that. Where he commits to a darker tone, it's definitely like, yes, okay, let's see where this goes. And you got that jazz kind of saxophone kind of music in the background. I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be a pretty intense kind of on the run kind of movie thriller, which is what I want to see. And then it starts to make weird choices and compromises where it kind of throws in this random, love interest character. You've got kind of a whinier character, which is Sammo Hung's kind of paying to pretend to be his girlfriend. You've got the mum character, which is hinting on something that happens in the film revolving a sword, which, you think is going to pay off, but it doesn't. It kind of slaps you in your face, which I didn't appreciate that at all. And then you've got other side characters that come into it, which is just too many characters, too many things going on. And it kind of has too much downtime for the scope of the film. When the initial thing happens with, the bad guy, basically being caught, and then through sort of weird kind of police kind of tactics, which is later revealed why it's happened. The main prime suspect is let go on bail, despite the fact very obviously trying to kill him and the witness in broad daylight through a car chase sequence. And then still managed to get bail, which is just kind of hilarious, really. But there's a reason why for that. That's revealed later on. Sammo Hung's, of course, afraid for his life, and a series of escalation things happen, while hilarity ensues also follows, which is just weird. It's an 1.5-hour film, and it wastes a lot of its time on weird comedy, which doesn't really work. Sammo Hung is great. Again, he's charismatic. He's definitely enjoyable to watch on screen, but pick a fucking tone, man. My God. And it's weird because the film has some pretty good action moments in it. The film clearly had a budget for exploding cars. Hey, you want a buzz on fire? Sure. You want cars on fire? Sure. You want people set on fire? Sure, we'll give you that. It has some really good, dangerous stunts and some good moments in the film for sure, absolutely. And some pretty decent fights when they just kind of play into the film, which is traditional Ringo Lam, and it's great to see, but you've got all that filler kind of going through it in between, and it's just it takes you out of the film. And by this point now, as I mentioned, I've seen so many of these types of films, and unfortunately this one for me anyway, why I do like Sammo Hung, why I do think this is a better movie than Undeclared War. I like the chemistry between him and the partner, that gets a little better towards the third act. It's just some of its kind of plotting and some of its kind of reasonings for the film to carry on. It gets a bit frustrating, especially when there's moments where clearly the bad guy has an opportunity to end both of them. Like in front, he has a gun, he could just go bang, bang, film's over, it's done. But no, he wants to be a sadistic asshole for some reason and wants to carry on the film for another 40 minutes. You got Tommy Lee in the film, which is a recurring character that was also in Undeclared War, playing the main bad guy here. And he's fine. He is what traditional bad guy. I'm an asshole. I beat up women. I shoot people. It just some of the plotting, some of the motivation, and its justification for keep on going for an 1.5 hours is very flimsy. All lead to a very pretty bonkers third act. But why I like some of those action moments, some bits really start to annoy me. Surprisingly, I've seen a lot of people do have quite a bit of a soft spot for this film. Maybe this one works for you, maybe more than compared to some of the others. There's so much choice, and there's so much kind of similar types of movies, bloodshed movies, and romantic kind of comedies and action thrillers. And there's so many different types of these films at the time. You are spoiled for choice. We'd love to know what your thoughts and opinions are, guys. Please comment down below. So meantime, guys, Amphlett reviews. Signing out.